Nompu, until this point, there's really been what seems to be unanimous sentiment from economists that the finance minister is actually in a better place than he was this time last year. The question is what he does with that.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Ayanda. I think he is in a better position than he was last year. Revenue has been coming in nicely. It does look as though they're not going to collect as much as they anticipated by the end of the fiscal year. That's to the tune of about 20 billion rand. But before, the undercount was something like 80 billion rand. So they're certainly doing much better. And who knows, in the last months of the fiscal year, towards the end of 2024, they might actually collect more taxes. But let me bring in now Dr. Christie Viljoen. He's a senior economist at PwC. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Christie. So my colleague is asking the question, is the finance minister in a better position this year than he was last year?
Probably. He's going to be dealing with the same challenge of getting less tax than he planned originally. But we do know that the outlook for our economy has improved. If we look at the markets, we look at the surveys, the outlook for the economy is better, especially the second half of the fiscal year. So it could be, as you said, maybe in the later months of this financial year, seeing more tax revenues than we are thinking about at the moment. So I would agree the finance minister is in a better situation. But that's only slightly better compared to a very challenging position he was last year. He's still dealing with the same fundamental challenges of needing to balance slow growth in tax revenues and then quicker growth in expenditure. Yeah.
So we bang on about the debt situation, the budget deficit, which is all very important. But of course, for consumers watching at home, they want to know how this midterm budget is going to affect them directly. There were promises made in the opening of Parliament address about expanding the VAT basket for zero-rated products and so on. What is your view on that and the affordability for government of doing that? But at the same time, something needs to be done because there are people who are actually starving in their homes.
Look, the average South African wants answers on quite a few different things. The promise that they're looking at the zero VAT list, promises that we are revising or looking at how we can change fuel prices, electricity prices, for example. And for a long time, we've been talking about a basic income grant. So those are all things that would dramatically influence the financial health of most households in South Africa if we know more about what's happening. Most of those kinds of announcements would be in Feb in the main budget. But the medium-term budget always sort of prepares us to say, listen, we're going to make a decision by early next year, announce it in Feb. So at least then we know where we're going to go with these factors. The affordability, as you said, that's a big issue. If it was easy and it was affordable, we would have done it a long time ago in terms of the VAT and the fuel prices, etc. It's not easy because in most cases, government needs to give up revenue. And that revenue needs to come from somewhere. Do we take it away from schools or hospitals or infrastructure? That is the big challenge because we really can't take away. So that is the balance that he needs to find. If we take away this one, where are we going to compensate for that? That's the big challenge.
One last one, the public sector wage discussions right now, they've come down, that is the public sector workers, they've come down to a position of 7.5%, government only willing to give up 3%. What can the government actually afford? Can it even afford 3%?
Well, I mean, they've planned for about 3%, so that is in the current budget. Every year that's the plan, and then the actual settlement comes out higher. That's the reality of the South African situation. Government can't really afford 7%, 8%. It's above inflation and it's growing at a speed, still growing at a speed that's actually a bit uncomfortable. But realistically, what can it do? Not much. The situation in South Africa with the employee-employer relationship, there's always going to have to be a middle ground because the labor union start at one end, the employer starts at the other end. We have to find each other in the middle. So not much that they can do on that end, unfortunately.
All right, Dr. Christie Viljoen, thank you very much.